All right, welcome back. First time we talked about box shots team training tonight. Hiring staff, training maxes. Okay. Um, let's start with hiring staff since Mr. Logan wanted to talk about that so bad.
Well, I mean, I
It's
don't know if I
important.
want to talk about it so bad, but I just think
We need to.
it's an art form. It's an art form that really can elevate your program.
Yeah. So these two kind of together, these points, but first, like, what do you look for? So let's just say we're in a, whether it's a private gym or college strength and conditioning setting, you're hiring a coach to coach personal training, weightlifting, strength and conditioning, whatever. What do you look for? Or how do you eliminate the wrong person quickly?
Quick, yeah. Well, I mean, so as of recently, the applicant pools are getting much smaller. I don't know if you guys have talked about that much, but
Oh yeah.
A couple of guys that I've recently been in contact with, so they're like having full-time assistants, full-time benefited, $40,000 to $50,000 positions, and they're getting like 12 applicants.
Yeah.
So when you've got a small applicant pool like that, eliminating people is a little more difficult because you don't have that many people to eliminate. But even like a year and a half ago, when I was hiring assistants at Utah State, I was getting applicant pools of 300.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right away, what I do is I start calling people that I trust and people that I know in the field and try to get recommendations, and just by doing that, you probably get, 5 to 10 recommendations. So those guys automatically go in the pile, or gals go in the pile. And then as I start to go through resumes, just at first glance, it's like, well, do you meet the qualifications? So do you meet education that we need, experience we need, so on and so forth? And then we start looking at cover letters.
Hold on. What are those, like, so we can explain that a little bit?
Say that again.
Like let's say education. Start. What is a check okay or like gone right away?
Well, it just depends. I mean, if we put on there like you need to have a master's degree, well, if they don't have a master's degree, then they're out.
Okay.
Okay. Unless like,
because I'm going to ask some questions later that'll get this a little interesting.
But here's the thing: unless I already know, like if I've already, because I'll vet the process before it's even posted. I've already been searching for probably 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
For an applicant. So unless I know somebody's like, hey, this guy's not done with his master's yet, or like he doesn't have his master's, or she doesn't have or have their master's, but like they're really good and he thinks they'll be really good at wherever I'm at, well, then I'll put that in the posting, master's preferred versus master's required.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
which is probably a smarter way to go anyway.
So you can write your deal however you want, unless it's driven by administration and they're saying, well, they have to have their master's,
Yeah.
or if it has an education component or something like that. Anyways, so then I start looking at like, what's their resume look like? what's their cover letter look like? Do they have poor punctuation, poor wording, like, how do they write? Then like, do they put the right school down like that? Yeah, you'd be amazed to see that happen more often than not.
Well, yeah, and then this is what I keep going. Sorry.
Anyway, then after you've gone through those things, you've probably vetted it down. Maybe you've got 50 or 60 applicants. Well, then from there, what I do is I start calling references, or I categorize them as well. I'm like, okay, these are my top 5 or top 6 that I think at this stage. Then I've got the next 6 or 10 or whatever it might be, and then the rest. I get A category, a B category, a C category, and then from there I start calling people not on the reference list.
Yeah.
So if I know somebody if I know that they've worked somewhere or with someone, then I start calling those people, and I pass that around also to my staff. I'm not the only one doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we go from there. Then once we get it narrowed down, and start doing like Zoom interviews or on-campus interviews or phone interviews, was probably phone first, then Zoom. Phone will eliminate a few, Zoom will eliminate a few, and then we'll bring them on campus. But from there, like, obviously I want somebody that's knowledgeable and knows what they're doing. and has experience doing it. But a lot of it's like, what kind of person are you? You know, what's
Yeah.
your personality? Will you fit? Will you fit with the rest of the staff? Will you fit with the coaching staffs that I need you to work with? Do you have experience in the sports that I need you to work with? Those types of things.
Yeah. So if we go back, like, you said like the applicant pools are way down, but if we think about when they were up, you're getting 50, 100, 150, which is the direction that they'll eventually get back to anyway. Like you said, that's what I have written down too, like spelling and grammar. Cause I remember like the first couple of times you go through it, you get 100 people, let's say, for example. And then you like the first pass through all the resumes. It's like everybody on the staff go through them, throw everyone has misspellings, poor writing, wrong person addressed to, wrong college, throw them straight in the trash. And it's like, that's like 65% of them. It's like, then from there, it's like, okay, now let's get to a top 10 based on, what you said, education, what's their experience look like, do you know who they are? Do you know who they've been with? Then you can narrow down, and then you can work with like 10 to 20. Then it's more realistic. But I think like that the first pass, and because everybody ignores that stuff, like they don't care about, or most people, like they don't care about what the stuff looks like. They just want to get it in because they're usually trying to mass produce these things. But so you catch the errors right away, right in the trash. And for me, I don't even care who it is. If it's somebody who like I know who they are and they're good, but it's all misspelled, I throw it right in the trash. It don't matter. Like it's like if they don't take the time to do that, it's like they're going to work out.
Right.
What do you think, Nick?
So I definitely have the least amount of experience hiring people.
Doesn't matter.
I would agree with both of you. So I can go from the perspective of being hired, and in any internship or anything that I've applied to, like I triple check those small details. Like I take pride in my ability to like use grammar correctly and spell things correctly and do everything that I can control, that those small details, like I make sure those are like perfect before like you get all the flashy shit done. Like you can make it look good, you can throw logos on there, you can add fonts, colors, whatever you want, but if the useful information in there and what people are looking for isn't taken care of, then that stuff doesn't matter.
When and like I don't even
application.
When I'm looking at resumes, I don't even like all the flashy shit.
No.
Like these guys, the guys here at Utah they were kind of talking about resumes the other day, and how there's this format one where it goes like it reads top to down in columns.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Has a bunch of logos,
picture,
and stuff, and like it's put that way because like it catches your eye here and your eye here. And I was kind of like, I looked at a couple and I was like, I'm not that it like it
look good.
It looks good.
Oh yeah.
But I was just like, it's hard to read.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to go down in order and say, okay, they were here.
Yeah.
This is where they went to school. These are certifications. Okay, boom.
Well, and it's like, do they follow the common recommendation of, if you've been working for, I don't know what the year is, but if you've been working for less than 10 years, is it on one page? Like, I don't want to read through 3 pages to figure out where you went to school. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. And like now for me, it's like if you approach it from the angle of if you've had to go through resumes before, it's like now it's like, well, people don't want to sift through your whole life to figure out what they need to know. It's like give them what they need to know right away and then leave it up for interview questions.
Yeah. I was going to say that too, to add on to my point, is like when I'm also writing a resume or writing anything that's pertinent to the application, it's like, what do I need to do to save the person who's reading this the most time possible?
Yeah, exactly.
So you just got to get straight to the point and put everything that they specifically ask for in the application posting and put that all in there without overwording anything or doing anything too crazy, so that they can get everything they need and then make a decision.
See, this is where I think it's important, because it's like these things, you don't know these things unless you pay attention to like your writing, or like you go look for advice. Because if they're poor at, like English language or writing, it's like, well, they haven't taken the time to figure out how to write one of these things. Because if you're confused as the hirer, on the person through their cover letter, it's like, well, this isn't going to work because they haven't thought through it. Like they don't know just how to write plain sentences to get you to figure out what they need to know.
Right.
Well, and it's got to be to me too, I mean, not on the resume or the cover letter itself needs to be concise. Like I should be able to
Yeah.
know exactly who you are in 3 paragraphs.
Yeah.
And so like it's a how you would organize that. Your first paragraph, quick introduction to yourself, like what position you're applying for. Next one is a very, very, very brief
Yeah.
explanation of basically your resume. And the last one is more or less like wrap it up, say
Yeah.
thank you, sign the bottom. And
Like-
so if I can read through your cover letter and be like, okay, this person is very concise. They know exactly what they're doing, what they're talking about. And then I can move on to the cover letter or the resume. And the resume, it's 1 sentence bullets,
Yeah.
you know, like where I can flow through it very, very
Yeah.
comb through it very easily. Then I know they know what they're doing.
Yeah, as we're talking about this, it's like the point of the goal of the cover letter and the resume is make sure it doesn't get thrown in the trash based on your presentation. That's it. You know, it's like just do what you can to make sure it doesn't get thrown in the trash because it looks terrible or it sounds terrible.
Yeah. And then for the cover letter too, it's like you say you want 3 paragraphs, shouldn't be more than a page, should be the cover, right?
Yeah.
Part of good writing is being able to like chop
Simplify.
anything that's not needed. So you write your first one and it's 2 pages long. Like you got to chop a whole page. You got to figure out how to word things to make it shorter and like take anything that doesn't matter out.
No redundancy, no fluff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and see, and we talked about this last week about like watching good sessions. Like, okay, so if somebody can't figure out how to write a super short sentence or like on paper, well, you know, they definitely can't do it when they're talking. They're even worse. If it's bad on a paper, it's way worse when they're talking. So like a team that, you know, if they're going to train somebody or have to explain stuff to a group, you know that it's going to be worse than what's displayed on paper because you get a chance to edit that and cut it down. So if in person, it's going to be way worse. So that's why it's like, well, if it's sloppy, throw it in the trash.
How long when you do phone interviews and Zoom interviews, how long do they last?
I don't want them any longer than 20 minutes. I mean, and they can be good and be 10 too, you know, but if they start dragging on, then I'll skip questions and I'll look at someone and be like, cut this. I'm done. Because
So go ahead.
Well, no, I don't have any. It just, if it's dragging on, I don't want anything to do with it.
I did a Zoom interview with a guy a couple years ago, and that's my rule, 20 minutes. So
Yeah.
it got to kind of drag it on, and I asked my final question. I said, "You got any questions?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Sounds good." I was like, "I'll be in contact." And I'll let you know.
Yep.
And then he called me like within 20 minutes.
There's mistake number 1.
He called me within like 20 minutes. He goes, "Why was my interview only 20 minutes long?" And I was like, "Because that's the way we do it. Like that's how I do it. I got 10 of these. I got 10 of these. I can't be on there for an hour and a half with you."
I really
And-
appreciate it, but I want to hear your voice for an hour.
And so, and I was like, "Don't call me back. Like, don't call me right after your interview. I'll call you if I want." And I never called him. I think I sent him an email. I'm like, "Hey,
No.
you're
I learned that the hard way. I think it's like the more, and it's a fine line, obviously, but it's like the more somebody, you know, contacts you and emails you and texts you and calls you about the job, it's like, I don't want them. It's too much. That's already going on. It's already done for.
I think I actually told you about this when I was at Utah State. This guy,
I'm sure.
because he'd email me like twice a week, call me, text me once a week for sure.
Yeah.
And you know, I got to talking like, but anyway, so like even then within the process, like where it was like the position was open, and then we have to take that like 10 or 12 days or whatever for it to be open and collect resumes. It was like every single day, some sort of correspondence. And I'm just like, and I just quit responding.
Yeah.
I just quit responding.
That's too
And
much.
I'm like, okay. Like, so I gave him a common courtesy Zoom, and he lived up to his expectation. And
there
that
you
was
go.
it.
All right, so I want to move this part on, but I like what you said about your like calling people right away. I think that's important, you know, for a couple reasons, but I have like written down how to use your network, because I think today it's probably used in a bad way. You know, I mean, I think it's too easy now to get a hold of somebody and say, "Hey, who do you got that I can hire. And then somebody just sends it to you and you hire, like, so it's like, where's the line between running like a thorough process? Like we're talking about like because, you call somebody, say, hey, I need somebody to hire. Oh yeah, here they are. We'll have them apply and their resume looks terrible. Cover letter's terrible. It's like, well, but I'm going to hire, cause that happens all the time. And that stuff drives me nuts, I think. So it's like, where is the line between who, and like running a process?
Well, and I mean, even in that, I think I've burned a couple bridges in the past by not hiring people that were recommended to me.
Yeah. No.
And he was super, like in the interview, he was just wearing like a regular old t-shirt. His hair was a mess. He was super casual, like nonchalant about answering the questions. We did it in the office. I don't know if you remember. Anyways, regardless, he was recommended to me, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I called him and talked to him on the phone. He sounded good. So I was like, okay, we'll Zoom him. So we Zoomed him and he did terrible.
Yeah.
And so I just called him back like later on. I was like, we can't hire you.
No.
And here's the reasons why. And so, but anyway, so he held on to that, and he actually was an assistant at Weber State in Ogden. Yeah. He emailed me and he goes, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I interviewed for a internship at Omaha. And so he came up to Utah State to meet with me, just to like shadow and watch a few sessions. And he goes, that interview, at that interview, and then what you did told me after the interview, he goes, the best thing that could ever happen.
Oh yeah.
He goes, because like it completely changed how I approached those types of environments. And he goes, it's what I needed.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's awesome,
Yeah.
But anyway.
What do you think, Nick, about like using networks or hiring friends or things like that?
I think it can be a good thing. But to me, it's all about like, you don't want to just throw names out to throw names out and get people, or get someone, jobs. Like, I've had a couple of guys ask me about people that I knew, and I was like, probably shouldn't hire them just out of the bat, because I knew that they weren't like either serious or like weren't like hardworking or like weren't something like that. And I didn't want to put my name on the line to someone that I respected, for them to interview that person and be like, well, this dude kind of sucks. Like, I'm never asking Nick for a recommendation again.
Correct.
So from that, I just kind of look at it that way. So if I ever ask someone about, if I were to hire and ask someone about that, I kind of would expect that in return, is like, who do you have? And please take it seriously, because, we're trying to hire the best people here. And I don't just want some name or some person or whatever, whoever it might
just
be,
because
that just because they've worked for you, like that doesn't mean anything. Like, I want them to be like an all-star kind of a thing. So I think people should put a little bit more weight into like recommendations or who they say and stuff like that, because they don't want to, give bad recommendations or lose respect or anything like that.
Yeah. See, and I think this is how if I had something open and you two both had a recommendation, like I would take, that's two people that I would listen to, but I still would do my part, like you still wouldn't just do it.
Well, I mean, you did that when you were hiring this last GA, who happens to be my brother.
Yeah.
And I was like, Sam would be good.
Yeah.
Because I know, obviously he's my brother, so I know him very well. And you still like even after we talked, you were still like, okay, like I'm still going to go through this process, and I'll let you know how it goes. So,
well, because the thing is, if we would have went through the process and somebody would have flat beat him out, then we would have done it. Like, I mean, I don't know. I just think that's important to like run it objectively.
Right.
And I think it's hard, hiring friends. I think it can be good, like you said, but I think it also can be really hard, especially if stuff doesn't go super well, or like it doesn't work out how it, because we all came, I didn't know you guys before we started together, and like, now we're friends, so it's different now, but
I don't think it depends on the friend. I think.
Exactly.
Like you've got to know that your goals and aspirations align.
Yeah.
If you're going to hire them, because if they don't, it's going to be a train wreck.
Well, and you usually would talk about it, years, like just, you would just know, like. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Another thing about hiring friends too is like if you hire someone and they're like maybe like a past friend and you come from like the same background and stuff, if you guys both are good at the same things and are
Correct.
both
Yeah,
bad at the
Nick.
same things, like it's probably not a recipe for a huge
Yeah, exactly.
success.
Well, I agree. It's like I've had people after Logan had left. Like, there's been people that were real opposite of me, and it's like sometimes that's frustrating, but it's also like that's real good to have somebody that's like, if I'm and that's the thing too. It's like if you're in charge of something, I don't want the person just like, yeah, we'll do whatever you want. No, because I would get myself in trouble, or vice versa. Like, you want somebody who's a little different, which is frustrating, but it's also good because, like you said, it's like you don't want two people who are experts at topic A and then everything else you don't know anything about.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
Mhm.
Well, you want to be challenged as well.
Exactly.
Like
Right.
every time you bring somebody new in, hopefully they challenge you
Yeah.
in some respect.
Yeah.
And I feel like pretty much everyone I've hired to that extent, even GAs, I'm talking GAs,
Oh, yeah.
interns,
Yeah.
like they've all challenged me in a different way.
Yeah. And not even
so-
on purpose always, like they don't even do it on purpose. Like, they just need different things, like,
Mhm.
Yeah. Nick just challenged me because he's a pain in the ass.
but he was just annoying, like that's fine.
Just boosting morale as much as I can, guys.
Yeah. Well, me
Morale
and
guy.
Logan were complaining. He'd come in and boost the morale.
Morale guy. Of course. Have to.
Any other thoughts on hiring people? I think
No.
we covered it pretty well.
I just think
It's like, do your part in the process as an applicant and as a, person hiring.
the thing is it can make or break it,
Oh yeah.
especially
yeah.
in this day and age when everything is
Oh yeah.
is instant satisfaction
Mhm.
type of environment. Like, if you've got, and I mean, more than likely you're probably not on the hot seat as a strength coach unless you're tied to some other sport. And if you're tied to another sport, you're probably not making a lot of hires.
Correct.
So, but like, if you have a goal in mind, or you have a projection for your department or your program, and you make a couple wrong hires,
Oh yeah. Done
like,
for.
blow that up a lot,
Yeah.
or completely stop it.
Yeah.
And then you've got to figure out how to either get them on board or make changes, and both of those are difficult because then you got to fire somebody, or you got to completely change a mindset. And I think so, making sure that you're putting the right people in the right environments is important.
Yeah. I think hiring is not easy. That's the last point. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard, and it's time consuming. So we want to talk about training maxes next. So flip total 180.
Okay.
Training maxes in terms of like assigning weights. So if you program for somebody and you're doing whatever sets and reps at 80%, like training max is commonly utilized as like a lower than 1 rep max. So if the most you ever squatted is, if you're 100%, 1 rep max is 400 pounds, training max might be 80 to 90% of that number. And that's the number that you then train at during normal training. And I want to kind of tie it into like lifting, or, how hard sets are, when you get up to like 100%, how frequent or infrequent it is, things like that. But we can start talking training max, because I didn't use it a whole lot. And so it's a newer concept to me, and one that I wish I would have thought more about at least. So I don't know.
So what do you want? Like,
I
do
want
we
to
use it?
like
Or do
how
we not use
like
it?
how do you, like, when you're programming weights or giving it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's your
Well,
an
like,
athlete or a random person. How do you,
Yeah.
how difficult should training be? What does training maxes look like? How do they tie in? When to use them?
well, I'd say, like, the thing with college athletics, there's so many dead periods throughout the year. It's
Yeah.
like you've got Thanksgiving break and Christmas break and Easter break and spring break, and then you've got summer break, or maybe they're not around in summer at all.
Yeah.
Like for like basketball, it's like, well, if you go from the season, so you in season, you're using a training max in season, because at some
Whether you do
juncture,
it on purpose or not.
yeah, it's at some point in time, like their new 100% is significantly less than what it was probably at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
But just within the season, then you'll have like 5 days off at Christmas. But you're training until March, more or less, in season. Then you get 2 or 3 weeks off at the end of the season. Then you start your postseason training. That goes for like 4 weeks, maybe. It depends how far you went in the playoffs. I've had it 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then the guys are gone for probably a month in the summer. So they aren't directly under your supervision for that month period. So you don't necessarily know, like, as much as you give them whatever, but you don't know how hard they've trained or if they've done it exactly the way you wanted to. I'll text some guys too, just on the side, especially if they've got higher maxes. I had a couple of guys that squat over 400. I was like, hey, how often have you hit, this number? Like 80 to 85% of the max.
Yeah.
That I did program over that month probably. And like, I didn't do those. Okay.
Perfect.
So now I know, like I know where we are,
Yeah.
And so when they all come in the summertime, I just automatically assume we're like 80 to 85 training max.
Yeah. Correct.
So
you just brought them down 10% or whatever.
yeah. So we start working off of that. Now some guys are way worse.
Yeah.
And some guys are way better. And
Which is their own fault.
Yeah. But so like I usually do some sort of capacity type stuff that first month anyways. So usually the guys that it's that are way better, they can just handle the volume more, and I maybe bump them a little bit. But then the other guys I might have to drop further than 10% or 15% or whatever that might be. And then so like what we did, then we have basically a week off over the 4th of July. So when we come back from that, this last week I was like, hey, we're hitting 85% of our training max. I'll just hit as many reps you can get. And so that's what we did this last week. Some guys got 5 and some guys got 15. So it's just a wide array. And then I just adjusted from there. And then we actually train off of what like an adjusted max or like a projected max. We'll train off that for the next month and then we'll test.
But yeah, well then it's all reset. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nick.
Yeah. So with me, I work more with high school kids. So the training age is a lot lower. I know some of the high school or some of the college people you get have low training ages as well. But sometimes I'm dealing with like, we're fresh out of middle school. Like I got a freshman in high school kind of thing. Like, so almost anything you do is going to work, and we don't like set maxes or anything. Like I can't set a max. So I use, I kind of gauge it like, this is what this should feel like. I've played around with RPE or reps in reserve or anything like that. But once I have trained a team long enough, it's to the point where I can get them up to like test out sets of like 80%, 85%, and 90% at some point in time. And then I can use a projected max instead of like a training max. I don't think I've had like one high school athlete that has been a continuous year-round like trainer, or like someone I've had consistently enough year-round to be like, all right, you kind of need like a training max. So
they're always kind of on a training max, basically.
Yeah. So they're basically like kind of always on a training max, because I'm never touching anything crazy unless I've been working with them to set the groundwork and then push them into like a rep set of some percentage, basically. Then I can set the new percentage.
Yeah. But see, even then, like we used to do that stuff all the time. Like you do a eval set or whatever and let them go up. But once they get over 5 or 8, like it's pretty hard to gauge. So you're still off a projected training max, you know,
Yeah.
because I agree with what both you said. And it's interesting, like, you know, like if you read like Jim Wendler's big in training max, like, you know, and they are accounting for people that train all year round or high school kids too. And it's interesting, like even their higher level people, that's even more important. And like they say, like, if you're not getting stronger, take the training max down, you know, because it's more about like what the form looks like and what the speed of the bar looks like. So keeping the training max fairly low, and then you're never going to fail. The sets aren't going to be super, super hard, but that's how they make progress, especially like high school too, like getting them in, and like, you never want them to hit a plateau. So like anytime the program changes, they should keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then if it starts getting, you know, too hard of reps or they start stalling out, then something's off, you know?
Yeah. And that's kind of why I touched on training age too, is because
Yeah.
when I was with you guys, or like any time in my life where I'm going through a very hard, like training bout, and like I get to a tested number where it's like, I've like never hit this before. And then you program off of that number, and I have to like continuously hit these weights,
Yeah.
of which I've hit like maybe 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. It's
And I have to do that week in and week out.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's a grind, and it takes a huge toll on the body. So like I've never had anyone where I've gotten to that point, which is kind of why I brought in the training age.
Yeah.
So if I had someone get to that point, then I would definitely do it, because the gap between best day and worst day is so huge.
Yeah.
And like worst day, you're not even going to touch like anything you've done on like a mediocre day, if your best day is like that much better.
Like some of the examples that they talk about, or that I've heard talked about, like they'll say, you know, like if you think of it in terms of like a max out type thing, you know, they say, you know, this kid, he benched 275 for 5, but he never had more than 230 on the bar in a training session ever. So that like makes me think, it's like, man, like, you know, maybe it should be a little bit more dialed back than we would like it to be for the most part. Like, as long as they're taking it seriously and doing good reps, and it's like, they don't have to go up near, like some of the famous powerlifters, they say, like, you know, they squatted 750 pounds in a meet and never squatted over 620 in a training, which is interesting. It's like, that's interesting, because if you're constantly pushing the, you know, like that's what you deal with in these other settings, high school, college, like kids come in, haven't trained, like you said, take the big break, postseason break. And it's like, all right, first day we have sets of 5, and Billy's in the corner trying to max out his sets of 5. And it's like, well, we're already screwed, you know? So why don't we not do that? Take it a little slower, and then figure out where we're at in 10 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just makes me think about how we program, and like, you know, these breaks are important to talk about too, because that's a big thing, I think, especially college, high schools, like they have these breaks. So there's no opportunity to like get up to 100% regularly. And, you know, it's just real difficult.
Well, I'd say we only hit, sorry, Nick, we're only going to max once a year.
Yeah. If you're lucky.
We only max in the once at the end of the summer. And do you guys still do 1 reps?
You can go ahead, Nick.
To answer your question, Logan, if they've earned a 1 rep, sure, and they really want,
put a percentage on that. How many have earned a 1 rep? 3%.
No, 3 people.
3 people, even worse.
Yeah.
But seriously, that's the thing. Like, so then it's like, okay, now, like, so can I do that with the team? Like, is me doing a 1 rep because 3 people can do it? Is that worth it for the whole team or a whole group of 70? No. So they ain't going to do 1 rep. Like,
yeah.
And when
go ahead.
When I programmed that 1 rep, so like last fall with the Des Moines Christian baseball team, like we worked all fall, and they kept asking, like, when are we going to max? When are we going to max? I'm like, you got to earn it. And then we get to the end of the semester, and the day I program maxes, I go to 90%, and I say, I have to see everyone's 1 rep at 90%. And only the people that hammer this rep get to go up to 95, and then so on and so forth. And there's like a couple people that feel really good that day, and they actually get a 1 rep max. And then the other ones, it's kind of their 1 rep max for that day, because 90% is a grind.
Correct.
And then the other thing I was going to say about high school is, like, you talk about all the breaks for college. It's kind of like on the opposite end of the spectrum too for high school. It's like, especially in Iowa, when it's summertime and you have a baseball player.
Yep.
They play baseball. They have football. they have basketball open gym. And if they're a 4-sport athlete, they have track or soccer shit in the summer too.
So they don't
So
want
they're
lifting
literally
weights.
doing 4 different sports almost every single day and lifting weights throughout the entire week. So I don't want to touch anything that's too crazy, because it's just like they're doing so much already, and they don't eat enough and they don't sleep enough. So you know that they're not getting enough recovery for everything that they're doing. So that's why I kind of wanted to touch on for the high school as well, because all
Oh, yeah.
the multi-sport, I'm all for multi-sport athletes, but you kind of got to know everything that's going on with them too.
Correct. Do you have anything else, Logan?
No. Less is more, in my opinion.
Oh, I was going to add this. So like we talked about the 100% thing or whatever. And I used to have like, you know, if a team would train over the summer mandatory, so you lay out the summer, lay out the fall, year, whatever. So yep, you know, we'll have the whole summer. And then that first week of August before they go home, we're going to test out. It's going to be super sick. You can't wait. And then, you know, come back 75%, looks like 150. I'm like, all right, well, this is all done for. And it's like, well, so then it's like, well, when did you test 1 rep, Mike? Well, never. How am I supposed to do that? Look, there's no 1 rep. So it's like, all right, scrap it. Now our week 5 is going to be 80% for as many as you can do. Perfect. So we still test, but it's not the same.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, even
That happens all the time.
at in Omaha, we 1 repped. We
Yeah, oh,
clean squat bench.
And I did it with the teams like, you know, softball, they 1 rep every year.
And then my first year at Utah State, we 1 repped. My second year, the summer was weird, and so we couldn't get where I wanted to get. So I think we just did like, they had an open set, and they just did it as many times as they wanted to for their last deal. And then it was COVID, so that was we basically started from scratch. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then last year here, we didn't 1 rep because everybody was new. So, and not that I don't like 1 rep, and I don't think that you should learn how to grind
Oh yeah.
one of those out, or know what that feels like. But I'd almost rather just say, hey, we're going to hit 90 or 95. Next set's open. You choose what you want to hit. Here's your old max. You want to go above it, go ahead, and then let them hit it for 3 to 5.
Well, yeah, it's like you want to do that, but it's like, is it smart in my setting? And I think that takes a fairly experienced coach to be like, you know what, this is not going to be worth it. Like, there's no point. I mean, it's like I want them to do it, but I can't.
Yeah.
So, well, we have less than a minute, so we're gonna wrap it up. All
Well,
right,
what's left on the docket here?
that's it.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye.